Welcome to the Jaren Jarvis channel. I am Jaren Jarvis. Today, I would like to introduce to you, Danger, Strong Undertow. Danger, Strong Undertow. Someone had fashioned the little makeshift sign out of miniature wooden slabs. It looked like it was made from the remnants of an old rotted fence. The words were painted sloppily across in red. It was the kind of warning you'd expect to see on an ocean coast somewhere with towering waves and real rip currents that pull people out all the time. You aren't meant to see it plunged in the sand of Lake Huron's small and secluded beaches. Anyone who swims on the Great Lakes knows the waves can get big, but rarely so large that you need to be concerned over your safety. The fact that someone had taken the time to make that sign and leave it out for everyone to see meant very abnormal water conditions. Even at the age of 9, that was apparent to me. Whatever strangeness the situation resonated, it quickly passed in favor of enthusiasm. The waves were absolutely massive. They came in sets and rose above everyone's heads in the water, even the adults. They had real arcs. So big that if anyone in the area owned surfboard, they could get out there and actually ride the swell. My parents had been taking me and my little brother Liam to the beach every summer. It had become somewhat of a holiday tradition. Among our beach equipment were our bodyboards, which we usually used to catch whatever whitewash and ripples we could. We sprinted ahead of our parents to set our things down and get into the water. "Hold up, boys," our dad said after he laid the towel down. "You're not going out on your own. Wait for me. And no one goes any deeper from where I'm standing, is that understood?" We nodded our heads. Anything to get to the waves quicker. I could feel the pull of the current from the moment I stepped in. The waves crashed so hard that even if our timing was off, we could ride them all the way up on shore until our boards got stuck in the sand. Sometimes, they arced so far over my head they would crash on top of me and spin me in every direction below the surface. Just like our father, many of the other parents carefully surveyed their children splashing about. It was clear that safety was a communal concern. We never had any intention of stopping voluntarily. We rode the waves over and over and kept going back out for more. It was inevitable that our dad was going to get tired of the water battering against his back and call it quits for us. "One last run," he called out. "Then it's time to go play in the sand for a little while." My heart sank. Once Dad made up his mind and started calling out instructions, there was no convincing him otherwise. There wouldn't be any more rides, at least not for a little while. It was my last chance to chase a real thrill. While he was busy helping my brother get on top of his board and aligned correctly, I swam a little further out. I paddled as hard as I could to reach that spot where I noticed the really big waves were crashing. It wasn't that much further. I could get there and ride one of those big ones all the way in without my dad even noticing. The paddle was a little tougher than I thought as the water grew both rougher and deeper. The water was colder than I thought the lake could get. It made me wonder how far in over my head I had ventured. The brown of the smooth and rippled sand along the bottom had disappeared. Below me, it was just dark. Almost black. I oriented my board back towards the shore and caught the first wave that hit. It was bigger than I could have ever imagined. I couldn't believe the thrust it gave me. I rose all the way to the top and got ahead of it just as it crashed. I skid across the surface so fast it felt like I was on a sea-doo. The wave eventually collided with a smaller one further in and I rode it all the way onto shore just as I had hoped. At first, I thought I'd been caught. My mother was screaming at the top of her lungs on shore. She was yelling at both me and Liam while we collected ourselves on the beach. It wasn't anger in her voice, but rather desperation. "Tanner, Liam, get up on the beach," she screamed. "Sit on the towel and don't move." Liam and I looked at each other, having no idea what was going on. My dad grabbed us both firmly by the shoulders and marched us to the towel and forced us down. "Don't get up from here until we come back," he said with fingers pointed in our faces. Then, both he and our mother dashed back out towards the water where the scene was very different than it had been just moments ago. No one was playing anymore. There was nobody riding the waves. In fact, they had dissipated altogether. Only the adults were in the water. They were forming long lines with one another, linking their arms together. They eventually became 4 chains, lined up from the shore out. They started sweeping from side to side like they were looking for something along the bottom. Liam and I looked at each other again. We still had no idea what was going on. Eventually, I noticed that we were pretty well in the same situation as every other child who had just been in the water. All of them, like us, had been quarantined to their beach towels. A little red-haired girl on the towel next to us walked over. "Do you think they're going to find them?" she asked. "Find who?" Liam answered. "The Glenn brothers. Their mother lost sight of them in the rip. She was screaming her head off on the beach. Didn't you hear?" "No, we were in the water." "Well, they live around here. I always see them whenever my family comes up. Braden is 13 and Jill is 6. They're both really good swimmers." To know what happened, the adults continued their search in the water. The surface had become totally still, as if the lake had picked up on the worry and stilled itself in response. Things stayed that way for a long time. A helicopter eventually started swooping over the bay from different angles. The motors of the police boats roared as they rounded the bend and came towards us. As far as I could tell, the search for the 2 brothers had been fruitless. It had progressed to the state of emergency. Liam, being 6, eventually became bored. He slunk away so quietly that I almost didn't notice he wasn't sitting beside me anymore. He had almost disappeared into the dunes behind us when I caught sight of him. "Liam!" I screamed and started to run after him. The little red-headed girl followed beside me. My feet sunk into the hot sand while I made my way over the first layer of dunes. On the opposite side, Liam hadn't made it far. He was standing short of a boy who looked close to his age, crouched in a ball. The boy was damp. He shivered, even though the sand below and sun above were so hot. His face was pressed into his knees. Gently, he rocked back and forth. "That's Jill, the younger Glenn brother," the girl whispered. Liam looked back at us and held his arms out. He turned back and tried to put his hand on the child's shoulder, but he squirmed and slapped his arm away. "Jill!" the red-haired girl called out. The boy grunted several times, then stopped. His rocking became more eccentric. He started to cry. Being the oldest, I felt the need to take charge. I pushed past Liam and knelt down next to the crying boy. In my calmest voice, I tried to talk to him. "Are you Jill?" I asked him. The boy nodded but kept his face pressed into his legs. "My name is Tanner." "Why are you back here?" "Your mom is looking for you, you know." Jill inhaled a bunch of his snot. He lifted his head up just a little bit and started rubbing his eyes. "I know," he said. "Then why don't you come back down to the beach?" "'Cause I'm scared." "Scared of what?" "Everyone is looking for you. Your brother too." "Where is he?" Jill dropped his head and started to cry again, much louder than before. I put my arms over his back to try and keep him still. "Jill, come on, come back to the beach with us. We need you to help find your brother. You're not going to find him." He managed to spit out in between his sobs, "What do you mean? He's not back here with you?" Jill shook his head. "Then where is he?" "Somewhere out there," Jill said, keeping his head down but pointing in the direction of the lake. I looked back up at the red-haired girl and Liam. "Go back and get our parents," I said. "Tell them we found Jill." They dashed away in the other direction, flinging sand behind them. I tried to pull Jill to his feet but he pushed me away. "Jill, what happened?" For the first time, he lifted his head all the way and looked at me. His face became stern. "I got caught in the rip," he said. "Braden swam out to get me." "Oh no. Did he get caught in the rip after bringing you back in?" "No. He's a really good swimmer." He put my arm over his shoulder and told me to kick as hard as I could. He started swimming sideways. "It's what you're supposed to do when you get caught in the undertow." "So he was able to get you out?" "Yes, we had to fight really hard. Waves were really big out there. He got us so far to the side that we were all the way out of the swimming area. All the way to the old dock." Jill wheezed a few times and wiped more tears from his eyes. I could hear the concerned voices of parents coming towards us from the beach. "It was weird," he said. "The sand goes out all the way on this beach. But we couldn't see the bottom where we were, even though we've swum there tons of times. It was all black on the bottom, like we were out super deep even though we were really close to shore. What happened when you got to the dock? He pushed me out of the water far enough for me to pull myself up. He started to lift himself out but he fell back down. Something had a hold of him. It looked like a black string of hair came up from the bottom and wrapped around his leg. Then another came out and grabbed his neck. The screaming parents had made it over the dunes. One woman, who I would later learn to be Shul's mother, sprinted ahead of the others. Did it pull Braden down, Shul? I asked just before they reached us. Shul nodded while his mother swept him into his arms. Yes, he said before starting to sob again. The black on the bottom started to move. It lifted up like a stingray. It moved out away from the shore really fast. When it was gone, one giant wave came. Then they all stopped. JD.